Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Urban Spokesman. My name is Chris Sanders, and I'm coming to you from the corner of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X right here in Harlem. That's right. I'm giving micromobility users the news they need to stay up to speed on micromobility and urban infrastructure in New York City. Okay, so today I want to talk about, have you ever guys noticed that in New York City here, there are a lot of gaps in the bike infrastructure here in New York City? Yes, there are a lot of gaps in there. Now, to address this, DOT has recently come up with their plan for 2023 of what they intend to complete in 2023. They came up with a map. They released it on Twitter. Again, Udonis and Eric Adams, the mayor, they are doing the best they can, but we can push them to do even more. All right, as you can see here, here is the map here, all right, over here, or right over there, okay. Here's the map, and if you notice in Manhattan, there are bike lanes, on the Upper West Side, on the Hudson Green Path, and on the Upper East Side, 1st and 2nd Avenue. Now, however, all of those bike lanes stop in this little red box area here, which is called Harlem. All of the bike lanes in Manhattan, they are the protected ones, the safe, protected bike lanes, stop at this spot right here in Manhattan. And so that's a problem, because that is Central Harlem is primarily a Black and African neighborhood, and then Washington Heights is a lot of Dominicans and Latinos over there. These areas do not have protected bike lanes, and none are on the agenda for this year. To me, this is the biggest gap in the Manhattan network. And in order to complete the Manhattan network, we would actually need to put a protected bike lane on Adam Clayton Powell, and probably another one, on another street further west, in between the Hudson Path and let's say St. Nicholas or Amsterdam or something like that would probably be good for a protected bike lane. Also 125th, because it goes from one end of Manhattan to the other end of Manhattan, I think 125th would be I think that would make a great bike lane that would help complete the 25 by 25 plan that people in the city, including the mayor, say they think that's a good plan for bike infrastructure in New York City that's organized. And again, the reason why you want an organized network of bike lanes is because it's easier for drivers, easier and safer for car drivers, easier and safer for pedestrians, and easier and safer for cyclists, to ride. So with that said, so you see the graphic here. I noticed that I live in Harlem, and it's a Black neighborhood, so I noticed that other black people, we're being left out of the infrastructure. I pay a lot of taxes to New York State and New York City, a lot of taxes, like more than most people would even make in a year. And so And so the way I come at it is I need to advocate for the infrastructure now, because most people don't know that they can't advocate for themselves, even though they're in a minority. You know, people who transport themselves via a bike are in the minority in New York City. And again, as a minority on top of a minority, I am not used to advocating for myself, because the majority is going to shut me down and, get all kinds of angry, yada, yada, yada. So, but I said, if I don't advocate for myself and other people right now, then I could find myself as one of the victims of traffic violence, getting crashed into. I've been crashed into already, but fatally, or in a debilitating way. So that's why I'm advocating for protected and safe bike lanes in Harlem, and to fill in the gaps so we can create a full network of bike lanes, so everybody understands. It's much easier for people to understand how to use it. When it's complete and it's standard, when everything's standard, when people can expect it, and they're like, oh, I know the bike lane is going to be on this part and this side on this type of street. It's on these 10 streets going down. Like, I know where it's at. That makes it easier for everyday New Yorkers, including car drivers. All right. So I pointed it out, and I know sometimes people don't always like my messaging, but, I have to do what I have to do. So I put it up there. I got a little bit of, people hot and bothered by the language, and I just have to do these things the way I see fit, and then I'm just not going to be perfect. Sorry. No, truly I am sorry. And then so in any case, so ultimately, earlier this year, I took a half a day from work, and I went all the way up to Albany, and I wanted to advocate for protected bike lanes in Harlem. I spoke with my assembly person and my council person. My council person supports protected bike lanes in Harlem, specifically the Central Harlem Bikeway. And I went to speak to the assembly person, who's, of Harlem, and they said they were not in support of protected bike lanes in Harlem, and they noted to me that I said, oh, well, I'd like protected bike lanes because, one, I think it's safer for me and everyone else to have them, and number two, I think that it would move people. It would be safer for pedestrians as well, to move some of the cyclists off the sidewalk and onto the bike lane, the protected bike lane. Now, they told the state assembly member of Harlem, New York, said to me that he did not believe they would do that. Well, the only problem is the data says otherwise. The data shows, let me get these stats here. I got stats right here. We love data, don't we? Woo! Woo! See, I was just hypothesizing when I was speaking to him, but now I've got the data. So the data shows, for sidewalk, specifically from the NYPD, the data shows 90% of people ticketed for riding their bike on the sidewalk 90% of the people ticketed by the NYPD on the sidewalk are black. 90%. That's 9 out of 10 are black. And the data also showed that in spots where they put a bike lane, sidewalk violations and sidewalk tickets dropped by 90%. So, what does that mean? That means that if you put a bike lane over there on Adam Clayton Powell, then you will likely, highly likely, you will see a drop in people riding their bike on the sidewalk. So because again, the reason they ride it on Adam Clayton Powell is because Adam Clayton Powell has had 1,000 reported crashes within the last few years. So 1,000 reported. I think it's within the last 5 years. Either way, that is undercounting. And so, we know that in black neighborhoods, it's definitely undercounting, and probably in other neighborhoods too, but specifically in Harlem. So there we go. So we have data that shows that if you put a protected bike lane in, according to the New York PD data, that the number of citations issued on sidewalks will drop. Period. In this. So there we go with that. So now, so back to this here. We have no protected bike lanes. So guess what? A lot of black people are being ticketed, fairly or unfairly, however you want to look at it, being ticketed for riding a bicycle on the sidewalk because they don't feel safe, and it's I can't say they're not justified. Also something that we see here, the New York Times came out with this article today, right? Yeah, after everybody told me I was just flaring up the racial tensions, and I want protected bike lanes for everybody. White people, black people, everybody, Latino, whatever. I don't care. Trans, gay, I'm gay. Hey. So, look, I think it's safe. I love to see people on a bike. I love to see grandmas riding a bike. I love it, especially when I see a handicapped person in their electric wheelchair in the bike lane. I'm very happy to see them when I'm riding by. So New York Times came out with this article. We're gonna look here at it. So, whoops. Okay, so we see here that in the United States, the pedestrian deaths are skyrocketing out of control because people are driving crazy. Number one, they're driving bigger vehicles, and number two, they're driving crazy. Number three, New York Times cites this Harvard and Boston University study where it shows that black cyclists were 4.5 times as likely to be hurt in, fatality. That means dead, fatality. So, as Hispanic walkers and bikers, as white walkers and bikers and Hispanic walkers and bikers, the death rates were around 1.5 to 1.7 times as white Americans for the same modes of transportation. So, and keep in mind that these are the stats, and with black people, they're actually doing less miles traveled. They're actually traveling less. So that's something else to note. Also, the New York Times is blaming it blaming in this opinion piece here, they're blaming it on the fact that the street design in poor neighborhoods is the reason. Well, let me tell you a story about Harlem street design. So, the DOT, someone got hurt on Harlem. You know how it is in New York. In order to get street redesign and street safety, someone has to die on your street, and then you might be able to advocate for it. So, and then they will do something. So, a very reactive approach, not a proactive approach. They're waiting until people die to do it. But that's the way we do things here in New York right now. So, the DOT people come in there. They get a little pushback from the community board. Actually, they get a lot of pushback because people can be extremely nasty in community boards. And, that's why I like to go to community boards, because board meetings, because that way they can do it to me, because I'm not going to flinch. I'm going to do it anyway. Like me, I would have came out of there, I'm like, oh, we're going to do the best design. After that yelling to that I got, I'm going to do the best design. Like, as, really a fuck you, but also, no, you're not allowed to dictate street safety when you're not considering the other people in the community. And community boards are advisory only. But part of the reason I'm joining is because I want to be a voice of reason and hopefully bring everyone onto the same page here. But basically, the DOT presented to the Harlem Community Board. They pushed back so hard that the DOT did a much worse design that ended up making Adam Clayton Powell one of the most dangerous streets in Harlem today, in terms of people getting hit by cars and all kinds of traffic conflicts because people speeding in their cars. And again, the cars are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. You hit someone in your SUV while you're in your SUV, they're going to be dead more likely, because it's much bigger than a car. But also, the street design is deliberately bad because it's what the Harlem residents wanted. God, that's so terrible. That's so shitty. And then, knowing that it was bad, they didn't even try to clean it up within the last 10 years. That's what makes me angry. They didn't try to clean it up. But I can't be angry. Angry needs to be turned into action. And so what you can do is attend the community board, transportation meetings, and the general meetings in June and July and May, because the DOT is coming to present to Harlem. We need to be there to tell them that we need this infrastructure. All right, so next here, so the design of the neighborhood streets is a primary issue. So they need to be doing things like street calming, protected bike lanes, expanding the sidewalks. Also, speed bumps would also help as well. So, but the New York Times is saying that the broken streetscape is only part of the problem. See, it says right here, the broken streetscape is only part of the problem. These neighborhoods are much more likely to contain arterial roads built for high speeds and higher traffic volumes at intersections, exacerbating dangerous conditions for people walking, according to Smart Growth America, nonprofit focusing on urban planning and sustainability. So basically what they're doing in low income or black communities is they're putting these things called stroads in the middle of the black communities. And basically what a strode is, it's like a street that's designed to allow fast traffic. The problem with that is you have businesses all along these roads, and then you have people trying to turn and weave in and out, and it creates a huge mess, a lot of conflict points. You shouldn't be building roads. We need the road to go on a diet. It's getting too fat. It needs to go on a diet, a road diet, where we add bike lanes, we add trees and plant life to slow down the traffic, and really, I mean, this phenomenon is not just New York. And, a lot of these traffic planners, a lot of these people, they're just blindly walking into these problems. They don't even realize that they're causing by everything can't be racism, right? So making the street safe has nothing to do with gentrification. I know black people love to say, oh, well, bike lanes are for white people. That's what they say. But the data shows that black people bike more than white people. Yes, the data shows that black people bike more than white people. But when you go to the community meetings, all that, you hear the black people say, oh, what about gentrification? And, oh, those bike lanes are for white people. No, they're for black people. They put it in your neighborhood. It's for you. God, it has nothing to do with gentrification at all. Gentrification is a result of bad housing policy. Has nothing to do with transportation policy. So in New York, many of the gaps in the bike network are in the black and Latino neighborhoods. So you see where you see the percent of black and Latino people is high, like in Harlem, all that. That looks like Adam Clayton Powell right there. So, but then you see a lot of high. These areas don't have a lot of bike lanes, or sometimes any, like Eastern Queens and Brooklyn. They don't have any. They don't get any. So they don't. But Eric Adams is the mayor, so I mean, we got someone who can fight for us. Udonis, he's Dominican, he's Latino. He can do it. He can do it. They can do it. We just gotta push them a little bit, and we gotta be attending our community meeting. So you see Philadelphia, all these places, DC, and a lot of and see with New York Times is also pointing out that as a society we blame pedestrian injuries on pedestrians, even though the cars are driving the fastest. If you're operating dangerous machinery, you are responsible if someone gets hurt while you are operating dangerous machinery. Doesn't matter unless they crawl up under your car themselves on purpose, and you can't stop them. Then it is your fault. You're not supposed to hit anybody if you are driving, period. Doesn't matter the reason, ain't supposed to do it. So the automobile industry came up with, jaywalking. I'm sure you guys already know that, to criminalize pedestrians. And what that really means is that ultimately only black people are going to be black and Latino people are going to be the ones they're primarily targeting with the jaywalking and all that. Not saying that no one else will get the tickets too, but ultimately that's what ends up happening. That's how you get something like 90% of sidewalk bike riding tickets going to black people. Despite the fact that they travel less overall. Okay, so so here we go. When it comes to Vision Zero, the New York Times is saying United States is completely failing. It's going the opposite direction. So we need these people to stay alive so that they can do work, they can fill jobs. There's not going to be, you know, a shortage of workers. We need them alive so they can be around to help our economy and help people. So we don't have to solely rely on immigration to bring in new people. We can just take care of the ones we already have, as a solution to filling all the jobs and taking care of other Americans. Okay, so let's see here. The New York Times, let's go back to this article. The United States can reverse the trend of rising deaths, a trend that disproportionately affects Black and Hispanic communities, by investing in safer road design. Yes, and that is what I am doing with the Central Harlem Bikeway. I have my guys out from the our micromobility Reddit over there in Queens, and they are doing great work there. Please support them. They are gonna get narrow streets and protected bike lanes over there in Astoria, Queens. So yeah, so yes, even the Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, here in the New York Times article, saying that every infrastructure choice is a safety choice. Yes, yes, yes. And in 2022 launched a $1 billion pilot program to redesign roads with the focus on racial equity. So well, here's the thing. I'm going to let you people know right now. So politicians, Pete Buttigieg, Joe Biden, and Eric Adams, and everybody else, you can't let Black people say no to safety. Okay? To traffic safety. That should not be up for debate. That is not something that should be up for debate, because ultimately other people's children, other people's family members, other people's providers, other people are going to be hurt. So we have to put traffic safety first and traffic freedom first. What I mean by traffic freedom, I mean the freedom to ride your bike or walk or drive your car without winding up in the hospital or getting into accident or crash. Like, you need the freedom to be able to do all of the things, because if you're like me, I drive, I walk, I take public transportation, I ride my bike, I do it all. And I mean, very interchangeably, you know. So I have to be able to do this stuff. Let's see here. Okay, so yeah. So yeah, so there we go. That's the end of the article. You know, let me know what you think about this topic in the comments, and something that we need to be doing. We need to be participating in the community boards, because the thing is, here's the thing: when you show up there to the community board meetings, like Community Board 2 in Brooklyn and in the Bronx, Community Board 5, and in Harlem, Community Board 10, and Community Board 11 and 12, and Washington Heights in Manhattan, and Community Board 4 in Chelsea. When you show up to all these meetings, Community Board 1 downtown, we need to be pushing the city to build out the infrastructure, to finish the infrastructure, build it all the way out, so that way we can ride the bike safe, we can catch the bus safe, we can walk safe, the subway, keep it safe as well, because a lot of people are multimodal. They're probably riding the subway and the bus and taking their bike or city bike or whatever. And then some of them, like me, also drive. So what I'm saying is, so that everybody can be safe and protected and we can encourage more people to use bikes and walk and public transportation. We need to do these traffic calming safety measures to help everyone. I know this is a long video. I'm so sorry. I wanted it to be quick, but there it is. All right, let's make it a great day or a great night. In any case, take care. Ciao.